Dear students, what we're going to learn today is determination of new small and medium-sized enterprises, organizational form. Well, today there are mainly three aspects of content we need to learn. First, understand the strengths and weaknesses of different Tencent cloud organization. Second, master the organizational situation, basic principles and methods of selection. The third is to clarify the organizational situation and impact on business creation. Let's look at the first item. Organizational form, so a comparison of its strengths and weaknesses. And in this place, let's compare it in three forms of business. Is the sole proprietorship we talked about earlier. Partnerships and corporate enterprises. So first let's look at sole proprietorship. So a sole proprietorship, he has his own good qualities, the advantages. The following are his strengths. Including startups like businesses. Transfer to cancellation procedures are easier. And the company is self-financing. So corporate debt risk. The amount of debt assumed would be smaller. At the same time, the tax payment of enterprises is relatively low for individuals. You only have to pay personal income tax. These are the advantages of our sole proprietorship. So behind the merits, he must have his flaws. For example, a sole proprietorship. His ability to resist risks is lacking. Because it's sole proprietorship, so his social connections, his background, the money he put in, the ability to take risks and so on. It's probably not enough. So there's a bigger risk. Second, funding is more difficult. As a sole proprietorship, so generally speaking, the scale is smaller. So the scope of the business and the type of product, number of services provided, probably relatively small. If you don't have the size of your entire business. If you are going outside to raise money, would be relatively difficult. The third is that the life of the company will be limited. Because it's sole proprietorship. So it's basically like this. Entrepreneurs or managers. Personal life or death. He's gonna make the difference. For example, you put yourself into a convenience store. If you are sick, it's hard for you to open a store these days. That's the truth. So the company's lifespan. By our founder, his lifespan. Or one of his physical conditions. Operating conditions. Even his philosophy. Let's look at partnerships. The advantages of partnerships are obvious. First of all, he's like our sole proprietorship. And he doesn't have to pay corporate income tax. Then you pay personal income tax. The second is that our program is simple. The cost of setting up is relatively low. And also our partnership. Because we're all partners. So our entire management team. He's a lot better than a sole proprietorship. But he has his own flaws. Like our partnership. Because we all share the debt risk. But the general partner. Which means our founder. He's under unlimited joint and several liability. And at that point, it's going to be very difficult for our corporate management team have a certain impact because someone's on limited liability. Someone's on unlimited liability, so in the right to operate, control and ownership. There may be some contradiction. This place is about because such contradictions may. Efficiency of decentralized decisions. He'll lower. In that case, it's gonna affect the operation of our entire business. What else does it include? External funding is difficult. Because a partnership like ours, it's usually not very big. And not enough volume. So you have to raise money from the outside. There may be some difficulties. The third is corporate enterprises. The advantages of a corporate enterprise. First, concentration of power. Because we are corporate, so we need a very scientific management system. There is a system as a guarantee, and this system, it's good. The concentration of our power. Second, when we raise funds outside, relatively speaking, would be more effective than our sole proprietors and partnerships. It's easier. Because it's big. The business scope of large volume is relatively large. It could even go on sale. So we can find ways for equity or debt financing. And 3, then our shareholders can share the financial risk of the enterprise together. Well, that'll keep us from the risk of this money on someone. Well, in that case, we share the risk. But he has his flaws. For example, because of risk sharing, so many shareholders, but the sense of responsibility and cohesion may be poor. Because when there's more people, if not a tight team, it's a group. then there's a very good chance that will show up. Declining decision-making capacity. For example, when group of bank, including GRI Air Conditioning, Dong Mingzhu's class, has exposed our big corporate corporations, with more shareholders like this. The issue of decentralization that has been brewed. Second, the law will be a little more restrictive. Because big corporations, for example, the disclosure of fiscal and tax every year. Disclosure of information, including the threshold you set, your entry threshold, including your delisting mechanism and so on. There's a lot of restrictions. The third is that management rights are not easy to control. Because there's too many people, everyone might want some control. Ownership of operating rights, so we are concentrating power. Cohesion, he's gonna be bad. These are the above three forms of organization of this enterprise. Its strengths and weaknesses, well, as for how to choose the form of our organization, must be based on, depending on the specific development of our business. So how do entrepreneurs choose the form of organization? Let's just talk about it briefly. First of all, you must watch. What kind of industry do you invest in? That means the size of the industry. It may determine the size of the business, and the size of the business, it may determine the type of organization you choose. For example, internet finance, like doing it in China. You are facing a population of 1.4 billion in China, such a market, and faced with China's huge industrial chain. So the economy of the internet finance, he is destined to be a large-scale enterprise. Well, under such a premise, if you are a sole proprietorship, you don't have such a fund, and the strength of technicians, your partnership does not constitute such strength. It can only be made by companies, the organizational form of this enterprise, to be able to do internet finance, and the real economy of the internet. So if I just invest in a convenience store, you said I used the corporate system, then this thing is overqualified. How to kill a chicken with a cow's knife. So open a convenience store in a situation like this. The best way is to be sole proprietorship. Because the money he asked for, the technical barriers are very low. So let's take the first step. You have to see it. What kind of industry are you going to invest in? The risk-taking ability of the second entrepreneur. You must examine yourself well. I can't just see how much I can bear now. You have to see the next year or two. How much can I afford in 3 years? Second, I can take on more than just the risk. Also include physical quality, psychological quality, and so on. It's all yours, within the scope of risk-bearing capacity. Therefore, entrepreneurs must strictly examine themselves. Can you have such an anti-pressure ability? The ability to resist risk, all aspects, your money, your state of mind, your physical fitness, including even a request from your family, and so on. These are within the scope of your risk-taking ability. The third is your tax factor. So we can see, just mentioned like a sole proprietorship enterprise, partnership enterprise, then we pay relatively little tax. But some industries, some enterprises, it is destined to have a large volume, then it's doomed. You will certainly bear more taxes. So you have to figure it out. That is to say, after we enter this industry, the burden of this tax and our cost. What is the relationship between profits? If taxes are too heavy, which leads to dilution of profits, as a result, enterprises will bear more. In terms of income and risk, then maybe we have to choose carefully our corresponding form of organization. At the same time, some industries, if we say we forcibly use sole proprietorship enterprises to hedge, may also be unrealistic. For example, I just mentioned the financial economy of the internet. So if you have to hedge with sole proprietorship, in the end, it may also overwhelm the enterprise. The fourth is the demand for future financing. Every enterprise wants to grow and grow continuously, form one's own brand. So, we need to have a certain strategic vision. So the future development of the enterprise, he might decide. Now, the form of this organization that we are implementing. A question of how to choose. Give me an example. If we think about it now, what we need to do in the future is the national market. In the early stage, we can use a sole proprietorship partnership, but there must be a long-term plan. A few years later, we use the corporate enterprise, and then go to financing to go public, and then gradually enlarge the scale. We have small commodities, we have mass trade in large commodities. We could all put it on the market, but there must be a long-term plan. Of course, then again, the long-term planning still depends on one premise, that is, what kind of situation are you? Because of you now, it is possible to decide a situation of your future development. The fifth is about the operation and management of enterprises. Different industries. Then, he has different modes of management, so different management models. He, in turn, will decide the organizational form of the enterprise you have adopted. For instance, like our convenience store, all he needs is a store manager. A shop assistant can complete the whole operation and management. Well, like this form of organization, he wants to be small and good, because in this way, the cost is more optimized, more profitable. So the other way around, if I'm going to open a supermarket, then it's destined for you to hire many employees, even have many management teams, and will classify a lot of departments. For example, your marketing department, marketing research department, including your finance department, and so on. He has to have it. Well, some of these operations and management, it's doomed. He can't be small. So our operation and management, which in turn will decide what kind of way are we going to choose to carry out our organizational form. Students, the above content, that's all we are talking about today. Now let's make a summary. Today's main topic is, at the beginning of our enterprise, and in the process of development, how to make the right choice. The form of organization. So this place, I have a thinking question for you. It's how we should be scientific. Choose the correct organizational form for the enterprise. Please think about it. Students, that's all for today's class. Thank you.